Recording. Lady.
Mad. As we, like we said, that was April.
Yeah.
April was wild.
The month of April was wild. And okay. All right. Fine. Enough of the debrief. It's late. And this is how committed we are to doing this for, to be fair, I was going to say for you guys. It's not really for you guys. I think a huge part of it is for us.
About 95.
A huge part of it is for us. And obviously those that tune in and listen, thank you very much. We always hope that whenever you walk away or finish listening to a discussion or an episode of ours, you walk away with something at least to think about or to ponder on, or something that makes you think, that's interesting. Because, you know, that's what we wish to leave you with. Because otherwise, what's the point? There is enough chewing gum content out there. That's just there to keep you entertained for the moment. You know, waste your
without
time.
Without adding proper substance.
Exactly. So we definitely don't want to be chewing gum content. We want to be content where when you're done, you're like, okay, I'm walking away with something. Whether you like it or not, you're walking away with something. Debates is what we live for anyway. So yes. In any case, that's the 5%. The 95% is for us. I think it's a great space for us to talk, discuss things, you know, what we're thinking about, challenge, what's going on, etc. So then, that's what we're going to do right now. We are going to move into the big conversation for today, the big question for today. Now, this is an interesting question because we want to discuss the topic of prenuptial agreements. However, in the context of the month that we've had, the interest in April that we've had, it brought some thoughts back to me. And I actually think Nick is in a great position to actually discuss prenuptial agreements.
Okay.
So we'll lay the context. We'll have that discussion on prenuptial agreements. And I guess I will throw the ball to you just so that you can explain to the people, tell them why I think you're in a good position to explain about prenuptial agreement. But we'll get to that question later. But the reason is, of course, you are 32, 31.
Hey, this one there, 32.
32. You're 32. But by the time you were 30, I think you were married and divorced by the time you were 30. Yeah? And that fact alone, 30, 31-ish.
No, 29, 30-ish.
29, 30, oh, okay, fine. That's even better. So, and that fact alone leads us nicely into our conversation of prenuptial agreement. Yes. However, I just want to take a step back a little bit. I just want you, in your own words, to tell the people, how did you find yourself 30, married, and divorced?
What do you mean? How did I find myself 30, married, and divorced?
The question is the question.
What do you mean the question is, listen to this guy? But yeah, well, we're jumping straight into the big gun straight off the conversation.
Yes.
But yeah, there isn't much to it, really. It's exactly what you said. So I think I met a girl when I was 27, thereabouts. You're going to have to forgive me on the dates. Yeah. So we was with her for 3 years, I believe it was. 2.5 years, 3 years. And then, you know, everything seemed, okay, no, in hindsight, nothing seemed hunky-dory. At the time, everything seemed hunky-dory. It was all good. So we then got married. But then about 12 or so months from that, it all fell apart. And then we went our separate ways. So in hindsight, that's what happened. Not in hindsight, in short, that's what happened.
Okay. I don't know if I want it in short. However, that's fine. We'll start with the summary for now, right? Because what I'm interested in with your story is that with your experience in mind, where do you then land on prenuptial agreements?
It's a tough one. It's a tough one, to be honest with you. But I feel like you're jumping at the end of the conversation.
Yeah, go back to the beginning then, which is what I said. I didn't want the summary.
Yeah, so as in, I would want to pin that question until towards the end of the conversation, and then we can come back to that, and then I'll tell you where I land based on what we're going to discuss.
Okay.
With the conversation, because I've never really thought deeply about a prenup, right? Now, for a lot of reasons, I think one of the things that I was reading, someone actually mentioned that a lot of people think that prenuptial agreements are for people that are wealthy or people that have got money. I guess they have a lot more at stake. So that's something that I suppose I can resonate with, because it's not like I had a lot of things and I was thinking, oh my days, what if? You see what I mean? And I was of a different mind anyway at the time. I think my approach to a marriage, a prenup for me, with the understanding I had at the time, a prenup is almost like you are expecting things to go wrong, right? Almost comes across as if at the back of my mind, you're hoping that, or not hoping, but you're thinking it could go wrong. So therefore, you are taking measures to protect yourself, which I always felt like, well, what kind of environment does that bring then with the spouse? Does that make sense?
Okay. It does make sense. And this is why I thought you were in a unique position to offer a unique insight. So I'm going to use your story. And I did say we're going to talk about your story. Are you okay to do so? You said yes.
Yes.
So those people who think, oh, cheating, don't say that. No. We're here. We're talking about everything now, right?
Oh dear, this guy is about to like rip my heart off.
No. So you mentioned about your sort of a prenuptial agreement, as in almost like preparing for worst case scenario, right? Now, if you look back at your relationship that ended, obviously you didn't start that relationship with worst case scenario in mind, but that's how it turned out. So then, if someone says, well, no, listen, it's not that I want worst case scenario. It's not that I expect worst case scenario. It's not even in my hopes or views or whatever. However, life happens. Therefore, is it not a good idea?
Okay. So I came across this phrasing that I thought was rather interesting, right? So I think it was Patrick Davis, PBD.
Okay, I know PBD podcasts. Is that his name?
It's Patrick. Okay. Not the podcast. I think this was something that I'm not sure what he's done it on, but he made this reference to say that when you take out a car insurance, right? It's not that you're hoping to be in an accident.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
In case you end up in an accident, you want to be protected. So you can add that to things like car insurance, house insurance, travel insurance.
Most insurance.
Nobody is out there buying insurance expecting to be in a situation where they need to use it. It's a protection just in case. So he made a connection to that with prenups to say that a prenup is like an insurance. It's basically like an insurance. You are not saying that the marriage is going to break down, but should that ever happen, then it's almost like from the get-go, you've got a plan together, you've got an agreement together that could eliminate a lot of things later on down the line, like arguments and things like that, right? And I felt like that was interesting, right? I was like, okay, fine. That's. I think that's fair. I think that's interesting. However, even though I've been in the story, even though I've been out here, I still don't know. I still don't think I can, me as myself, I don't think I can advocate for prenups. Even though I've been in the story. Now, anyways, we're talking about my story, right? So let's go a little bit deep, right? Now, again, See, I always find that a lot of things are hard to articulate to the mass because I feel like, and I'm gonna speak for myself on this one, but I think you could relate. We always speak about our upbringing, right? And I feel like there's an unfairness in the way that we were brought up, in the mentality that we have, for example, right? Even though my marriage broke down, yes, that was heartbreaking. Yes, that was, frustrating, annoying. A lot of finances went into it. A lot of stuff went into it. And I should have been annoyed. I should have been angry. Yeah, I should have been, how could she? You see what I mean? But I did not feel those feelings. So let's get a bit more specific, right? There was a vehicle, right? Now, obviously, we didn't do no lawyers. We hardly had anything, right? So it was a lot cleaner than I'm guessing that some of our listeners might experience. Most people might experience. So again, I'm not saying that this should be everybody's reality, but I do believe my attitude towards it, sort of like, if we can apply that attitude, I do believe that there could be, but then again, you challenge me on this, right? So there was a vehicle that, I'm going to be specific, I bought before we even entered the marital agreement, right? Now, obviously, because we were doing a long distance situation, right? So she was living in Malawi at the time, I was over here. So in our conversations, we made an agreement that I'll put the car in her name so that it's a lot easier to maintain and whatnot and do stuff like that because she's over there. And the vehicle in our agreement, verbal agreement, was it's for me to be using when I go see her there because I was going quite regularly and obviously car hires, spending quite a lot of money and whatnot. So it made sense at the time. Yeah. Even to this day, I would say it made sense. Right. But the car was mine. Okay. Not to bore you with the details.
Definitely don't.
But I never got that car back. Right? I never got that car back. And
did you ask for the car back?
I asked for the car back.
Man is like, hell yes, I did.
I want to go back. Hey, listen, crying in a car is a whole lot different than crying on the sidewalks. Like when it's raining and whatnot.
Fine.
And rumor has it that to this day, she's still using it, right? But not a single penny of hers went into it. It was all me. Now, again, for those people that have a lot of assets, let's multiply that to thousands and thousands of money and things like that, yeah? Again, someone can argue with me that it was just a car. Maybe that's why you're able to let it go. But I still sit and reflect even to this day. And for me, it's fine. We had what we had at the time that we had it. We didn't want this to happen like this. Things have fallen apart. Things have gone like this. I decided that I didn't want to quarrel about something like that. Yeah, I didn't want. There was no need for any more unnecessary stress, argument, whatever. You see what I mean? And I was happy to let go of that. I was happy to just let it be. Yeah. And I want to argue that I chose the peaceful option out of the situation. Because obviously we have brothers in Malawi, they're like, oh, no, we will go A, B, C, D. I'm like, yo, guys, chill. Yeah. We will start again. We will rebuild. We will get it. And I think that's, even if it was thousands and thousands of money, that would be my mentality, right? We will rebuild. We will start again because people forget the time that you had together. Those decisions were being made, or the time that you were happy, that for me is what I focus on.
So that sounds great, but then would you say that if someone is saying, if there is something in place that can prevent that situation in the first place, there it's fine, write it off, start again, rebuild. If there's something in place that can prevent that, isn't it a good idea?
And that's why it's hard for me. And that's why I was saying for you that, to be honest with you, having been in it, it's really hard to say one or the other, because I would say, yes, it makes sense. Yeah, especially I've experienced it. I've been in it. So I'll be like, yeah, you know what? if you and your partner can agree and say that, yeah, fine, let's do it this way, so that at least you're not crying for the breakdown of the marriage and also loss of your assets, fine. But then at the same time, I had a wild thought that came to my mind. Well, those are consequences, or what can I say? That's the
side effect of
the side effects of the breaking down of the marriage. And again, I feel like this is we speak about masculinity here quite a lot, right? I feel like it's gonna be mainly on the man to be the one letting go. So, for example, if the woman is there trying to challenge everything, pull everything, I feel like the onus would fall more on the man to say, you know what, fine, I'll rebuild again. But I don't think that's easy. Again, if you throw in thousands and thousands of money, like what we see, you know, with a lot of these cases, it's not an easy thing. It's really not an easy thing. So I don't think I can advise a person one way or the other, to be honest with you.
Really?
I really don't. But what I can do is look at the prenup and then compare it with, let's say, Bible principles and see what, as Christians, we ought to do. That's different to what I'm telling people to do. That is now us examining what the high authority that we all acclaim to, and then seeing what the Spirit would expect us to do in regards to prenups.
Okay, well, I think that's a good place to pause on your story. We'll come back to it for reference, but okay, fine then. So let's try that then. Let's see what comes out from that line of exploration. So where would you want to start then?
Okay, so where I want to start is, I didn't want us to complicate this because, you know, we could have decided to go into the history of prenups and things like that and whatnot. I was like, no, let's not do that. Let's keep this a straight up conversation. If I say to you a prenup, you know what we're talking about.
Yes. Yeah.
So we're talking about the agreement that two people enter into. It's a contract basically before entering into a marriage, right? That is quite detailed. In regards to, it breaks down pretty much everything. Yeah. Assets, money, debts, you know, even let's say alimony as well, responsibility on children, you know, like, do we have money made during the marital period, or money made outside that, and so on and so forth. So in terms of that, I wanted us to look at to do a comparison basically.
Okay.
Right? Of what is, I'm not gonna lie, I went up and down, to be fair with you. Okay, so let's start here. I want to start with looking at the purpose of prenuptials, right? And again, I didn't go too deep. I literally just went on Google, prenuptial agreement, and then that's what I used, just so that our conversation is a lot easier for everybody to understand.
Okay,
we're not looking into deep stuff here. We're not going to tell you that you need to go read this in Hebrew. A prenup means this, nothing like that. Just what we all understand.
Prenup, the way it's commonly understood.
The way it's commonly understood. That's the way to put it, right? Okay, so I want us to just do a bit of reading. If you can pop up that page with the definition that we were looking at.
This one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So below that, it's got purpose. Right. So it says, the first one I want to highlight says clarity of ownership. Right. It says to clarify the financial rights and obligations in the event of a divorce or separation. Right. Preventing future disputes. Okay. One reason why it's hard. And then financial planning was also part of it. There was also avoiding disputes, like we've already pointed out, and also protection of assets, right? Now, if you continue reading down, it's a bit more information. There's content that was given. Again, it just goes into a bit of information. If you can just read like one or two under the content. So if you go up a little bit.
Content. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Just read one or two of those.
Typically outlines how assets acquired before and during the relationship, including property, savings, investments, and inheritances, will be divided. It can also cover spousal support, alimony.
Okay. Now, the first challenging thing that I found, or interesting thing that I found, right, was that I was reading part of these things, especially things like financial planning and things like that. And I was like, if you were to sit down and outside marrying someone, advise me on how to be, let's say, a proper man, I actually saw that a lot of these things that were being mentioned here are things that you'd be telling me. So, like, for example, let me ask you a quick question, right? You've actually mentioned it already. If in the context of finance, right, is it so absurd to tell somebody that has worked hard for their money, right, to think about the potential of a marriage breaking down if they enter in that marriage with all that money, and tell them that, no, you've worked hard for your money, you need to be wise. Why don't you enter into a prenuptial agreement to make sure that at the end of it, the hard work that you've put into yourself, the hard work you put into your business, all these things that you've done, that you don't lose anything? Would that not be considered as sound advice?
Am I talking generally, or am I talking in the context of what we represent here in terms of, if let's say it was a Christian businessman, for example, who I was talking to? If it was a Christian businessman, then no, I wouldn't consider it sound advice.
Okay.
Speaking in terms of the world, logically speaking, yes, you can say it's sound advice, because the world is about, accumulate, do not lose. Accumulate, do not lose. The more, the better. So yes, worldly speaking, sound. Christian speaking, no, I wouldn't say it's sound advice.
Why wouldn't you say it's sound advice, Christian speaking? Because doesn't the Bible also sort of like point to being sort of like good with our money?
Yes, but not in the context of keeping it from your wife or your ex-wife.
But you're not keeping it from them.
Well,
you are using it as you are together, but then this is just in case you decide to go your separate ways. Is it not wise to have an agreement of how you're gonna divide what you either have together or what you had before you came together? How is that not sound advice?
It's not sound advice, because if you're a Christian, I think it's what you said before. If you're a Christian considering marriage, you have to understand that there is no getting out of it.
Okay, so that's interesting, because that's the same thing you've asked me, I think, when we started. Nobody, okay, ideally speaking, no one enters these marriages thinking they're going to break apart, right? But they do. They will continue to do so. Now, we as a people have that knowledge, right? So me as a person going into my second marriage, I don't want to, but at the back of my mind, somewhere in the corner of my mind, sleeping, is a potential of something, of the marriage breaking apart, right? For me specifically, because it's already happened, right? Fine, fair enough. For those people that have never divorced, whatever, they could be thinking, you guys do this wrong, or you do love wrong, and things like that. Fine, fair enough. Yes, we do it wrong. Okay, fair enough. But the facts are, it does happen. So knowing that, how is it not sound advice to tell somebody that in case it does, why don't you have this together? You don't want it ever to, okay, because the thing is that the prenup does not stop us spending money together. Yeah, it does not stop us building a business together. It does not stop us managing our finances together. It doesn't stop us from doing anything as long as we're together. But should we ever break apart for whatever reason, unless obviously death, right? Then what we are agreeing is that this is what we're going to do. It's not going to be 50-50, 50-40. I'll keep what I brought. You keep what you brought. We'll split everything in half. Or That's the agreement there. And you can even take that, lock it under your house somewhere, and hope never to use it. What's wrong with that?
I know what's wrong with it. I'm trying to think of the best way to communicate it in the most condensed way that I can.
Okay.
But what's wrong with it is that for me, I think it's Therefore, a man shall leave his mother and father and be joined into his wife, and they shall become one flesh. Right? My question is, what do Christians understand by that term one flesh?
Okay.
Because what I understand by that term one flesh is that there is no longer me and there's no longer her. There is just us. Right? So, yes, I understand everything you're saying. You hope the best. You hope never, anything to happen. But just in case it does, for me, that just in case it does, it's what's problematic.
Okay.
Because don't get me wrong, I'm not naive. Life happens. A lot of things can happen. The person you marry today may not be the person they are in 5 years. I don't quite agree with that. But we'll pin that for now. A lot of people say that. Oh, they're not the person I married. I think people don't change. We excuse certain behaviors in one season that we then penalize in another season. That's my theory on it. But that's not the conversation we're having right now.
It's really not. Because I could challenge that. But let's move on.
Okay, you challenge it when we have that conversation. So yes, I understand the whole. No. I never want it to happen, but just in case. But for me, it's that just in case that leaves the door ajar for things to enter that should not be entering in your marriage.
So are we talking spiritual then? No, what do you mean?
Well, I mean, I didn't mean it spiritually. I just meant in terms of a metaphorical statement. In terms of, okay, so when I got married, right, I got married with the understanding that come hell or high water, it's either I die or this woman dies. This marriage is forever. Now, when I was getting married, the biggest thing that I had to heart was in case of infidelity. Aside from infidelity, there is nothing else that's going to break my marriage up. Why? Because the Bible tells me that's the only reason I have to divorce my wife. But then it even became even deeper than that, because I understood that even in the case of infidelity, the Bible calls me to forgive. It says that if you can't, in essence, the Bible is saying that, listen, if you're too weak, if you're too weak to forgive, then fine. And this is the thing, this is the conviction that I received. I was like, so I understood that the design of God, the intention of God is that marriage is forever. There is nothing that breaks a union of two people up. And so for me, enter that marriage, why do I need a prenuptial agreement? Because in my mind, there is nothing on this earth that's going to break this marriage up.
Okay, fine. So
and then I'll come on to the other, what you people would call realities later. But
no.
But,
that's what I'm about to come to now.
Okay, fine.
Okay, not realities, because why can that be reality? Yeah.
Why can't what be reality?
What you've just said. Why can that be reality? So I'm not gonna dismiss it as if it's not reality.
It should be, yeah.
But what I'm gonna say is that that's one reality, right? That some people are facing, and it's working for them. And then there's another reality in the same world where people have now experienced that infidelity you're talking about, and they've not been able to forgive, right? And then they've decided, you know what, I can't stay in this situation anymore. We need to go our separate ways. Yeah. Now, hence a divorce is happening. There've been people that have experienced, you say you try to excuse one behavior one season, another behavior, the same behavior, now you penalize it. Someone saw that maybe this man or this woman is going to be abusive, but at the time it was just at a small level. It's fine, he'll be okay. 6 years down the line, whatever, I don't know, loss of jobs or whatnot has brought out that character. Now the person is being beaten, and I've decided, no, I can't stay in this marriage. What kind of marriage is this when I'm being beaten every day? I'm gonna leave, right? What I'm trying to say is that I understand and agree with you about lifelong marriage, right? But at the same time, I do believe that we also still need to acknowledge that there will be Christians who, unfortunately, whether they want to or not, will end up at divorces.
And this is why I thought you're uniquely placed to address this question, because you are those Christians, which is why I was interested to see how you understand the biblical text in context of your experience.
Biblical text.
What I've said, because my stance is biblical, I would argue. marriage is meant to be forever. Even Jesus says the only reason he allowed divorce is because of our hard-heartedness.
Well,
So
that's an easy one. I fall on the hard-heartedness because I couldn't forgive. I couldn't go on.
No.
So,
okay. The thing is, and the reason why I say, your situation is different though, because your situation wasn't a matter of forgive and move on, because the other party involved, whether you forgave or not, that wouldn't have resolved anything, right? So and this is why I think you have a unique insight, because it's different. If your issue is forgiveness, I think it's on the cards. We're going to talk about forgiveness soon. We could have talked about your inability to forgive. We would have prayed for you. I would have spoken in tongues and everything, right? Fine.
put your hand on forgive.
You'd have got deliverance from that, no problem. But yours is unique because that wasn't the situation. So even if you had said, "Oh no, yeah, I forgave," you know, no, there's no animosity, whatever, we can work through it. The other partner wasn't willing to do that. They wasn't willing to work in the marriage. So, and because of that unique perspective, that's why I was like, oh, okay, fine. Well, that's interesting. Because then where does he fall on prenuptial agreement now? Because now he understands that things can happen outside of your control. Things that where if everything was in your control, as a Christian man, you'd be like, you know what, it's tough, but God tells me to forgive. So we're on the same page. I'll forgive.
Because
no,
not on the same page. But in terms of the question, we are together, because that's what I'm trying to say. That what you've articulated is, I don't want to say the ideal world, but it's a reality for some people. Yeah, some people will be tasked with having to work at it. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, I cheated again, but I'm really sorry. I really want to work in this. You know, not again. I'm just trying to say that you've said that my situation is that I could have stayed. She didn't want to stay, for example, right? Now, let's say you have two people that want to stay. Yeah. So you are speaking more to that aspect where there are two people that want to stay. We'll work at this, you know, I'll forgive you and so on and so forth. We'll go. But then some people are facing that same reality like me. Yeah. Where it's actually broken down.
Yes.
And that's the conversation we are having now. You see? So that's why I'm saying that for those people that it's happened to, it's gonna happen too, right?
It's going to happen too.
Could happen too, right?
And I think that's where I take. I think that's where I take the issue.
We can't ignore it though. That's the thing. We cannot ignore. Okay, fine. Let's leave this aside. Yeah,
we can't ignore things that have happened, right? Because they're history. They have happened. But we can speak into and we can dictate and we can seek to influence things that haven't happened yet.
Okay. Let me take you back to our old conversation that we had. When we were talking about the corn star Lily Phillips. Yeah. I put it to you to say that suppose she's delivered, right? Suppose she's delivered and she's a believer now, and your son is like, yo, I found this woman, I want to marry her. You say, I posed it to you that what advice are you giving to your son? And you say that on the off bat, you were against it. You said, I would say find another woman. Yeah. Then you added to say that because consequences are gonna follow this woman, you can't ignore that past, right? Now, what you were doing there, you're acknowledging that there's a history there. Something has happened. There's a history there. There are going to be consequences there. And in fact, there could be a high chance of them maybe even relapsing or something like that. Yeah. You didn't add that. I'm adding that, right? Now, all I'm saying is, if we come back to our conversation, all I'm saying is, right, if you were to sit here and give me advice or something generic that's happened over and over again, we always say that there's nothing new under the sun. Yeah. In fact, going back to my situation, most people, you know, advised me at the time, spoke to me at the time about the possibility of the outcome that happened. Yeah. Based on this, we are seeing that A, B, C, D could happen. Based on this, we are seeing that A could happen. You know, therefore, we think that you shouldn't, because there's a possibility of this happening. So what I'm saying to you is that the same advice can be given to people, to youngsters that are entering marriages today. That based on the way the world is right now, divorces happen. People wake up and decide they don't want to come into they don't want a marriage anymore. People step out. people start beating people. So because of that, you marry, go be happy, but I advise you have a prenuptial agreement in place, just in case, based on what we know has been happening even in church. So
no. So
what's wrong with that?
Okay, I understand where my issue is now. So there is a difference between the situation that you described, where people were saying, you know what, based on what we know of this girl and blah 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 blah, we would advise against it, right? That's before the fact. It's like before you enter a contract, like a business contract or any sort of contract, right? And someone is telling you, hey, this business was bankrupt 5 years ago, or they were in trouble with the financial people 3 years ago, or they did this, but hey, based on the history, we don't think this contract will be a good idea, right? That's fine. Because that's before before the fact.
So what if someone says, right, that statistics in Christian marriages at the moment are showing that there are a lot more high divorces, right?
Therefore, before you get married, my child, make sure you do it right. Okay. Because what statistics are showing us is that a lot of people are doing it wrong.
Okay, fine.
So my child, make sure you do it right.
Okay, fine. So I don't think we can categorically say that those that end up in divorces did it wrong. I think that would be a wild statement.
Because it would be a wild statement. Let me make it.
Because one would have to now clarify or look into what is doing it right and what is doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Because if
100%.
we go into the churches, and look at the divorces there, again, I'm not quoting a statistic here, but I would put it to you that most of them at the time, me excluded, I would say did what they thought was right at the time, did it the right way.
I would argue not.
Because where's the safest place to find a girl if not in church? Because some of these people are even meeting them, pastors saying, I saw you guys married together, God has told me, okay, that's why.
Whoa, okay. So you're right. It would be a very wild statement for me to say that all marriages that end in divorce is because they did something wrong, or all marriages that end in divorce in churches because they did something wrong. I'm gonna make the statement. All marriages that end in divorce, especially in the church, is because they did something wrong. Because I'll ask you a question: why did it end in divorce? Because
let's take the big one, infidelity. It ended in divorce because of infidelity.
Well, biblically, infidelity is the only reason or only acceptable reason of divorce that we have. And the only, if it's a situation where everything else was okay and that was the reason why the marriage ended, then we know what went wrong in that situation.
Okay, fine.
We know that someone did something
for the sake of our conversation,
wrong.
so that we don't go too far, because now we're going to start analyzing the right way and the wrong way to get married, which is an interesting conversation that we can have. But then let's stick with that for now and say that, okay, fine. So for that particular person that ended up in an infidelity, right? Now there's another person who's getting married and they are saying that, listen, I did I did everything right, but I still ended up in this situation that I never thought I would have ended up. It tore me apart. It broke me apart, and what's worse, I lost half my empire because I didn't have a prenup agreement in place. So I'm advising you, my son, put something in place just in case, and go bury it under your house, and let's pray that you will never have to use it, and be happy in your marriage as much as you can. What is wrong with that? Last time,
I would say what's wrong with that is that you're already starting your marriage not in line with God's principles, or not in line with God's ideal of what a marriage is.
Okay, fine. So let's go there, because that was your question. So let's go there.
So then,
yeah, be specific then. What exactly are you not in line with? Like one of the examples.
There is nowhere in scripture, there is nowhere in God's experience, God's people's experience in the Bible that will give us, that gives us room or even the possibility of an agreement of prenuptial agreement. Because what a prenuptial agreement does, whether we like it or not, is to say that yes, we're joining in this union, but we're still separate people. It is still you and it is still me. We're working in partnership for the time that we're together, but you're your entity, I'm my entity. And should our partnership come to an end, the things that I brought in as a self-entity, I keep. The things that you brought in as self-entity, you keep. Or you figure out, obviously prenuptial agreements, they can have agreements on how they're going to divvy things up. And whether we like it or not, that's what a prenuptial agreement is doing. It is keeping two people separate. And my argument is the ideal marriage that God had in mind is where two people become one. Two minds become one. Two lives become one. Two goals, two aspirations, two bank account, whatever it is, you become one, and now you're operating as a unit. Should, God forbid, don't get me wrong, I know life happens, but should that unit break, then my position is I'll have to suffer the consequences of that. Because God has joined this thing together. Should that break, consequences, I'll suffer the consequences of that. Not as long as, obviously, if I'm getting married, and this is what I'll say I will be, because I do want to speak to a lot more young people about marriage, because I think a lot of people misunderstand marriage. So when I do speak to young people about marriage, I'll be saying that as long as you're going into the marriage knowing that this thing won't break because of me. If it does, fine, but it's not going to be because of me. Now, if the man is thinking that and the woman is thinking that, well, the chance that it's going to break.
Again, I feel like if we do that, okay, I don't disagree.
Let me ask you a personal question. Let me ask you a question directly, based on what I've just said. That mentality that I've uttered to say that we're going into this thing, it's going to be you and me till death do us part. And should it break before our death, it's not going to be because of me. That's the mentality thing I'm describing, yeah? Do you think in your first marriage, you both had that mentality?
Funny you should say that, because there was a conversation that I remember that we had. I don't know what we were talking about, but it was a deep conversation, right? And that statement was actually uttered not by me, but by the other half.
Say what?
That, you and me can never break up. Why would we break up? You saw me like, what is there that could actually ever break us up? You know, we are in it to stay. That kind of
but this is what I'm saying about how people never change, because the proof is in the pudding. The reason why everyone was telling you this is not the girl is because we could all see something. So yeah, fair enough, the statement was uttered, but my point is, okay, you're saying that to say, oh no, but you see, she's saying all the right things. And I'm saying, okay, fair enough. From your perspective, I understand that.
Your question has been the mentality that if the two of you go in it with that, yeah, does that statement not speak to the mentality?
No, because actions speak to mentality. Actions testify on mentality. Anyone can say anything, but your fruits will testify as to your mentality.
Fair enough. But that still doesn't address the question that we're talking about, because what you're saying...
Of what prenuptial? Yes, it does. Very much.
In the sense that what you're saying is all things being equal, yeah?
Okay, finish.
Yeah, all things being equal, it will never break. And I agree with that.
No. Okay, break that down for me. What do you mean by all things being equal? Because I don't know if that's what I'm saying.
I'll repeat the statement you've just said. This will never break because of me. If two parties are saying that, there is no breaking down.
Yes.
100%?
Yeah.
Yes. Yet we are seeing that marriages do break down. I think that's where I'm being a bit different to you. That yet we are seeing that marriages in the Christendom do break down.
And I'm saying they're breaking down because one or both of the people in those partners are not adhering to the principles that they claim to believe in.
Fair enough. I want to believe that at the time, people are being as honest with themselves as they can be. Maybe in the wrong way, maybe not doing it properly, but they are. So therefore, hang
on. Maybe in the wrong way, maybe not doing it properly, but they are.
No, in the sense that you can believe what you're doing is right, or you can believe, let's say, and you can believe the Bible to be saying one thing when it's actually not true. Does that make sense? So, for example, zealous, but without knowledge, that kind of thing. So you can believe that you are, how do I put this? Okay, so you can believe that you've done all your main principles, yeah, as dictated to you by God, you know, in entering a marriage, for example. But then those main principles could be flawed principles based on your lack of understanding of the spiritual things or of the Bible. Yeah. But to you at the time, you are still doing what you think is the right thing. Right? Now, the question still is that they are breaking down. Yeah. Now, you are not going to speak to every single, okay, hopefully this will get out there and people are going to be hearing the wise things you're saying and people are going to be jerked up and be like, you know what?
I'm just
be like, you know what?
The biblical stance.
You know what? Let me approach this from a biblical stand even more and whatnot. Fine, great. And we could potentially end divorces in the Christendom. Fine. Right? But where I'm coming at it from is that if let's stick 10 people in a room, right? I'm putting it to you that based on the way things are right now, based on the way the world is at right now, in their flawed way of thinking and so on and so forth, the statistics are showing that the likelihood of 5 of those 10 people ending up in a divorce are quite high, right? We know that. Now, we don't know which of the 10 people are going to end up there. They're all going to enter marriages. We don't know which one of them will end up divorced.
What I'm saying
is it not wise then for them to enter prenuptial agreement just in case?
If we're talking about Christians, then I would say no, it is not wise just in case, because and the whole point, at the end of the day, it comes back to the fact that a prenuptial agreement is not something that the Bible endorses. It is not something that you can stand up in front of Jesus and defend as a principle, because when God gave us marriage, when He gave us union, when He gave us the metaphor of marriage, He knew exactly what He was doing and He knew what His intentions were, and in that, I don't see a room for prenuptial agreement. Now, I think from everything we've been saying, I think I understand where we not differ per se, but I think where I place more emphasis than you, because yes, a lot of Christian marriages are breaking down and ending in divorce, and that stat is getting higher in churches. Now, there's a lot of factors that go into that. Obviously, a lot of people will say a bunch of things. But for me, especially the ones that I've encountered, especially the ones of my peers or the peers that have got married and divorced within 3 months or got married and divorced within the year or whatever, I see a resounding pattern, which is 9 times out of 10, the issues are there before they even get married. And so, which is why it goes back to what I was saying earlier about, if you do it right, then you won't even need a prenup in the first place. And what I mean by what I mean by doing it right, it's a big discussion. But my point is, even before you get married, people usually have an inclination as to how healthy the relationship is, because I've heard stories, instances. I've been in the room of people getting married the next day and they're literally blows, fighting with each other. And this is the day before the wedding. And then the next day you're at the altar. Yes, I do. I will. I'm like,
because that's how they speak their love language.
No, because people don't understand what marriage is anymore. Because a lot of people approach marriage as the next logical thing to do. Oh, I've gone to uni, I've got my degree now, I've got a good career now. Oh yeah, marriage is the next thing to do. That's how people approach marriage, and of course it's gonna end.
You don't think people marry for love? Because I heard somebody, I had a conversation with someone this weekend actually. He believes that there's no longer love in marriages. Actually, people are marrying for mainly what he described as, for example, what can you bring to the table? What can I bring to the table?
It's selfish love, yeah. That's what I call it. I'll call it selfish love, yeah. Because, and this goes back to a discussion I don't know if it was we who was having or someone else, but it goes back to the discussion about how people misunderstand what love is, because people view love as if they're in a loving relationship, or I'm so, there's my relationship is filled with love because he does this for me, he does this, 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 but that's not what love is. Love should be, I do this, I do this, I do this, I do this. That's what.
But surely
love
you
is.
can also receive love, so you should be able to speak on what you receive as well, not so?
And do you remember the phrase that we always say that the Bible is always speaking to the person who's reading? So if the woman is reading the Bible and she's saying, okay, I need to love, and if the man is reading the Bible and saying, okay, I need to love, then they're both loving in a giving way. So,
And they will both feel the love because they are both receiving. So you can still speak on what you're receiving.
Yes, yes, you can, but it's a priority list. In my head, I view it as a pecking order, right?
I understand that, but I'm just trying to highlight that you still speak on the love that you're receiving. Yes, in the
what do you mean by that?
First and foremost, it should be about what you do, but can you also sit and think to yourself, you know what, that person does A, B, C, D, E, F, G for me, or
that's appreciation. Yeah, you need that.
Or so in the way that you give love, can you not? You should be able to receive love as well, not so?
In the same
or
way.
rather, if someone is giving love, that person that giving it to, they are receiving it, right? Okay.
I don't understand the question.
You say that the Bible speaks to the person who's reading it.
No.
You need to love.
Okay.
Yeah. So that person,
we were down a rabbit hole by the
loving.
time I was uttering that statement.
That person is loving.
Yeah.
Right. So what I'm saying is that, okay, fine. So that person at the end of this, at the person at the other side of the one who's reading the Bible, can they not sit there and also detail what they're receiving, basically? Or speak on what
they
they're
can,
receiving?
but in doing so, there would be being appreciative. They will be being thankful and grateful.
So love can only ever
it.
be given. It can never be received as love.
The Bible tells us what love is in Corinthians. How many of those adjectives or descriptions are receiving? Do you think?
None of them. I think love is kind, love is patience, love is long suffering.
What's that saying? It's saying you need to be kind, you need to be patient,
but
you need to be long suffering.
If I'm gonna be kind to somebody, surely that person can see it and be like, oh, but Nick is kind to me.
100%.
So are they not receiving the love then?
Wait, what are you trying to clarify? Are you hearing me saying that people don't receive love?
Yeah, I am.
Is that what?
Yes,
No.
that's what I'm trying to understand. Wait, is it just a go?
No.
Okay, don't worry about that. It's fine.
What I was saying was just to add to the point about. I mean, I don't know if I can say people don't marry for love anymore. I think it's a matter of love has been misunderstood and misconstrued. So now what people think is love is no longer love. So 9 times out of 10, if someone's getting married, unless they're brutally honest with themselves and tell you, yeah, listen, it's just for convenience. Nah, listen, it's just for the second paycheck. There are some people who are that brutally honest. But 9 times out of 10, they'll be like, oh yeah, no, it's because I love them. Or, one of those, oh, I know he's a bad boy, but I love him. It's that kind of thing. So they think it's love. But then I'll always come in and question, okay, fine, let's break it down. Let's have a look. Is this love that you're talking about? Or is it just lust confused with love? Or affection confused with love? Or just boredom? Maybe not boredom is there. Or loneliness. Okay. Or loneliness confused as love.
So what about, kind of what about this aspect then of, do you not think a prenup can be a last resort of making sure that the person you are with is the right person, in the sense that if you have that in place and the person was not of the same mentality as you, let's say till death do us part, now there's this thing that shows them that, if you step out or do something, you ain't getting anything, keeps them in line.
if you're
it weeds out. Is it? Can you?
If you're having those questions and those doubts, why are you even considering this?
No, you're not having these doubts and questions because of the person. You're having these doubts and questions because of the society.
Society has nothing to do with your marriage. So society is not
the person has come from the society,
and sometimes and this is a thought I've just had right now. And so if you ask me too many questions, it might fall apart. But I think maybe sometimes that's why marriages fall apart, because people spend too much time looking out instead of focusing in.
Okay.
When it comes to marriage, so the stats, for example, the divorce stats. I remember the year when I was getting married. When I was getting married, I don't know if it was the year or the year before, but stats had come out to say that over 50% of marriages fell. I was like, that sucks for people. And I carried on planning my wedding. Because what has that got to do with me?
Right, so let me throw a scenario at you, right? This is the last one, and then I've been playing an advocate here. I'll tell you what I concluded with my situation.
Yeah.
Right. There's a church, right, of believers. Right. In this church, every guy has met a girl within the church, and the girl has been a prayerful girl, right? Loves their God, dresses accordingly, sings in the choir, speaks in tongues, whatever. And guys have approached such girls, yet the stats are still in this church that 50% of these marriages are breaking down, right? Now there's a guy there who's now met a girl as well, yeah? Prayerful girl, everything, right? They pray together, they read the Bible together, just like all the other marriages, just like all the other girls that have broken down. Now he's entering that marriage as well. Yeah, we've checked the girl, and unlike me, she's does all the right things and goes all the right places and whatnot. And then I'm sitting there, I'm like, yo, but the stats, prenup still.
That's your
What's
problem.
wrong with that?
That's your problem. Why are you worried about stats when the girl is right in front of you?
Because every other girl with the marriage that's broken up has been exactly like this girl.
Okay, so if that was the case, then I might be inclined to say, okay, fine, maybe pause for thought. If that was the case. However,
Die alone.
No.
Go to a different church.
No. I was saying the scenario that you presented. If that was the scenario as
if it was a real
given,
scenario and it
as given, then I'll say, okay, fine, maybe pause for thought, maybe go to a different church or whatever, But I would argue to say that the marriages that are breaking up, the ones that are sending the charts through the roof, won't be the girl that you've described.
Okay.
So and I'll be fair and say I haven't got any stats to back that up. I haven't got any research to back that up. That's just my assumption based on the scenario you've given. And I appreciate that. That's probably something I would have to back up if I needed to defend it any further. But I would argue, because the way you described that girl to me, you described a godly woman. Is the way that I received it. You described a godly woman.
It appeared as a godly woman.
Well, okay. Can we dwell on that a little bit? Because I think this is probably one of the biggest things that comes back at me over and over again, especially in the context of prenuptial agreement. Because you're right, looks can be deceiving. People can put up pretenses, appearances. They can try to be one thing and etc. But this goes back to what I'm saying about doing it right before marriage, because whether someone is good at pretending or not, they won't be 100%, right? And that's why for me it's important that before marriage you expose your partner to different environments, different people.
Like send her to a war zone.
No,
see how she's gonna fare.
No. In terms of
take him.
In terms of bring them in environments with your family members, with your friends. In high stressful environments, because there could even be like games or something like that, and this is getting practical. This is like tactics. It's not like strategy. I'm talking about down to the roots now, like actual practical things you can do. Like actually put this potential partner of yours in different environments with different people in your life, so that you can actually get a full measure of this person. Because if the only time you see your partner is at a restaurant or at the cinema or at a nice romantic meal, I'm sorry, but you're getting one version of that person. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. We're all different versions in different scenarios.
Take them to a poor place.
Yeah, what?
A poor place. The ghetto.
Why not?
And then pretend the car's broken down. Oops.
How
You see, I take the taxi without you.
Do you know what? So my wife and I like married at first sight. It's probably one of the only.
I don't even understand why.
It's probably one of the only reality shows that I can stand. I mean, some of the drama gets a bit annoying, but the premise of it I find really intriguing because it is literally a study of marriages, right? And people.
But okay, go on.
Because it's married at first sight.
Yeah, but no, I was going to say that a study of marriages in the wrong way, though, because based on what we've just discussed, that's doing it wrong. You don't meet somebody and then marry them.
I have no issue with arranged marriages. I have no issue. In fact, I think the increase in divorce rates is because arranged marriages died down. We can talk about it, but I honestly think
that was a different time. People stayed. Okay, finish what you're saying.
Yeah,
there are two more things I want to check
sorry. Before what was I saying? Oh yeah, about exposing your partner to different environments. I can't remember the ultimate point I was making, but I think the ultimate point I was making was to say that the more experiences you have with your potential partner before you're married, with friends, family, and et cetera, you get a better measure of this person holistically. So then by the time you're thinking, okay, fine, I'm gonna marry this person, there really shouldn't be what if? Or what if they're just pretending? Or what if there's a person? Because you know them comprehensively. Like my point is, if you have those doubts,
you can never know a person fully, though.
You can know the essence of a person fully. Yes, yeah. So I do things sometimes that my wife thinks, oh, that's surprising, but that's because she knows I love music, right? And sometimes I'll stumble across a song that she may not think I would like, but I'm like, no, I love this song. But that's not a new thing. She already knows I love music, but what music I'm listening to might surprise her. Does that make sense?
Yo, rock. Yeah, there go.
Like Robbie Williams, man, right now people don't understand. Even I don't understand my like of Robbie Williams, but I just like some Robbie Williams songs. But my point is, that's not, if people know that I love music, that's not a strange thing. Does that make sense? So we can never know the full extent of someone in terms of their potential, but I think you can fully know the essence of someone. Yeah. You know the phrase, I'll let you go into 2 points after this. You know the phrase, oh, Nick would never do that. In fact, one of the biggest arguments that my wife and I have is when it comes to stuff like that, where I'm like, no, but you should know me as a person, to the point where you can be like, Chin, I'm not sure about that, right? Because you know the essence of a person.
What, she doesn't think that?
No. We have philosophical debates.
Oh dear, sounds tiring already. All right, so what of? Again, it's not our story, but 30 years sort of people, 35 years, 40 years, divorce, right? Still wrong beginning?
My theory, yeah. And I hope God grants this desire of my heart, because I do want to, in the future, where possible, do like a mass study on divorces. Because
What are you going to be looking at that hasn't already been looked at?
Whoa, my focus will be on the reasons that people got divorced, and then at what point did those things start manifesting or show themselves or whatever. Because my working theory is that there is nothing new that enters a relationship, and our own experience recently confirmed that, because obviously, like we were saying before, our mother recently got married, which means she's no longer married to our dad, and the reason that fell apart dates back to even before they got married. And it's like, you know, I could name a few other people, but you know, I can name my parents because they're my parents. I don't know anybody else.
Wait, what? No. Who else? Lay them all out.
But again, my working theory is that most issues that are not infidelity, fine, maybe because if someone is struggling with lust, they can keep that hidden. You know, maybe they, you know, but
it can develop at some point. It was never an issue, but now it's an issue. You don't think so?
What, lust?
Yeah.
No, I don't think. I don't think so. So you're telling me there's a version? Is it?
I think so. I definitely.
Is it
think
possible? So. Yes.
She never once thought of looking left, right, and center or whatnot, you know. But then one day she was driving. It was a hot summer's day in Britain. We don't get that every day. And then that colleague has come into a certain in a certain outfit, and now suddenly you're thinking, "Oh, I've never seen that colleague like that."
Temptation and lust are two different things, though.
Okay.
Because being tempted is an ongoing thing. Like you can be minding your own business, and someone comes over, "Oh, hey, big boy," temptation. That's different to lust, because temptation comes to you, and you you have to.
So, at what point of a person's life would, let's say, lust, for example, develop?
What kind of question is that?
No, because you're saying that nothing new enters the marriage.
As soon as I mean,
so is it like from a little kindergarten, from the moment you're born with lust?
Especially nowadays, these delinquent kids, a 9-year-old can probably be fighting with lust. Not even probably are dealing with things of lust these days.
I think it's something. I think some things do indeed develop, but when we do have that discussion of that study,
do you know what?
We will look into.
Yeah, when we do, and between now and whenever it comes up, I want you to prove me wrong. Mm-hmm. Right?
With what?
No. So come with all the arguments or all the examples of things that could develop out of nowhere. Or
no, it's never out of nowhere, but it's something that may never have existed if certain things hadn't gone a certain way. So it's definitely not out of nowhere. Because, okay, fine. If we talk about, for a split second, talk about capability. Can people be capable of doing something, let's say before they enter into marriage, but maybe not acting on it or realizing it or whatever? I can probably agree with that. Yeah. But that's the thing. It's like, I never knew I was capable of doing this thing until maybe a situation came. Let's talk about domestic violence, for example. Yeah, you could have somebody who never thought they were capable of hitting their partner until a big argument happened, and then it was heated, and then they exceeded, let's say, a certain level that they have never exceeded in their whole entire life, and then it ended up like that. Yeah. Now, if I was to look at that person and say, I don't know, but you should have seen that, you know, even before, I think that would be unfair. In my opinion, that particular example, I think that would be unfair. Because certain situations as well can bring up certain, let's say, aspects of people that even they themselves maybe never knew they had in them. Well, it's the same thing. Even if we talk about positive, yeah, it's the same thing. Like you don't know how courageous someone can ever be or how brave someone can ever be until they are thrown in a situation where some robbers have come into their house and now there's an actual gun in front of you, and you are, it's now do or die. And you end up in front of your wife facing the gun saying, you're going to have to go through me. It's almost the same thing what the Bible says, you know, faith without actions is dead. You know, It's only when we are in the moment when we can actually see, do we actually have faith or not? You know, you can talk about it all your life, but then until you are in the moment where, like people always like to say, take a bullet for Jesus, are you going to say, are you going to be a Peter and say, I don't know that person and start swearing? Or are you going to say, yep, I'm a follower, and then take the bullet, that kind of thing?
Okay, well, I'll meet you in the middle. And I will say that I think the only way for me to defend my hypothesis is to speak with enough people with real life experiences, and that's where I've got to, because it's all great me having this great hypothesis, but then if I speak to people and I realize actually this doesn't meet the real world experience, I have to rethink it, then fair enough. So I mean, you make a fair point. Say you face a situation you've never faced before. You've never been bankrupt before. Exactly. Now you're bankrupt.
And now someone is saying, no.
So, and I will be fair, and I will allow that much grace. So yeah, I guess you guys have to stay tuned for my big
All right.
study.
So here was my conclusion on the matter. I mean, we've gone about this in a completely different way than I thought the conversation was going to go. So I'm hoping our listeners were able to grab nuggets here and there and whatnot. But like you said, I have been in the situation. You know, again, I never thought I would be in this situation. Personally, I think I'm too much of a gambler, to be fair with you. I gamble with life. Because I think I've always remained to say that I was taking a chance. It's like I was like, you know what, this could either go left, like what people were saying, or it go right, and one day we will sit and laugh about it and be like, ha 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 ha, you know, because you know there were signs of both, you know, and it went left. It went left.
It's your
you know?
summary. Let me not say
And
anything. In fact, let me change the camera just to you.
Rude. It went left, and I was like, fair enough. So for me, my conclusion was this: in terms of that, I do agree with everything you were saying. I do feel like there's a certain spirit, I think, that is against this. For example, the unity, trust, and love,
The foreverness.
the foreverness that the Bible kind of like touches on, and also there's a slight danger of viewing a marriage as a contract as well, you know, whereas it's not meant to be a contract. I think you put it nicely when you mentioned about, therefore a man shall leave his house and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. I strongly believe that, like you actually mentioned, that the minds need to be joined like that in oneness. And again, I think a lot of things you've said I would agree with, because sometimes, not sometimes, but in all cases, I would say the beginning is always literally what lays the foundation. And I believe this is why the Bible talks about unequally yokeness, because you're talking about mentality-wise. Do you view this the same thing, the same way? Because if you do, then already you're heading in the same direction. So even issues that might have made someone turn left and right, you're sort of like on different paths, let's say disagreeing, but still facing the same direction. So my conclusion was that actually the issue is, and I got to this conclusion because of the example that I was talking about, insurances and stuff like that. Yeah. I was like, yeah, of course you can get a prenup as an insurance, but already that's a problem for me, because insurance is good. We should all have insurance, but as a believer, your insurance is God, because at the end of the day,
Which one are you trying? I don't know which one are you
join
trying
together, let no man separate.
Oh, what God has put together.
You see? So it's almost like you can enter into this thing and leave it in the hands of God, for example, you know? And I think the problem is, for me, what I realized is, especially with all the examples that people are giving, you know, financial assets, you know, protect yourself from debts and whatnot. These are all worldly, right? This is a world view.
That's another thing.
And that's
an
issue. Yeah. It focuses on materials, and it focuses on self as well, self-serving. I think you mentioned that point as well. And the problem and the conclusion that I came to, it's like when you look at the worldly, you're looking at the flesh, right? We need to approach things in the spiritual way. I think the problem is that we try to take spiritual stuff and understand them in a physical way, in a flesh way. Now, therefore, becomes the problem. The whole unity thing, the whole thing should be a spiritual walk, should be a spiritual gathering. And yes, there will be challenges. There will be moments you might need to forgive and things like that and whatnot. But like you've said, actually, if you start it properly, it will end properly by the grace of God. And I think that was my conclusion. The problem is, let's not look at marriage as a physical thing or as a flesh thing. Let's look at it as a spiritual thing, because let's not forget the example was Christ and the church.
Yeah.
You see? Adam is a type of Christ. Eve is a type of church. And, you know, Corinthians, I think, that puts it nicely. It doesn't even split or whatever. It actually tells you, you know, just as Christ loved the church, you also love your wife. So there's no misunderstanding whatsoever. There's no confusion. That's what we ought to aspire to be. So if you look at it that way, definitely I agree with you 100%. A prenup has got no presence in a Christian relationship heading into marriage. It was my conclusion. And should it end, I think it then calls on other stuff that the Bible teaches. You know, it will call on that, for example, that forgiveness, you know, you let go. At the end of the day, these are material things. And I've always said, ain't nobody going to take a house to heaven. Yeah, you ain't going to take no car to heaven. You ain't going to take no money to heaven. So even if you have to go to zero, you know, it reminds me of that speech, the Egypt speech we always laugh about, the Moses. Sure, they have their chariots, but we have faith, you know. I would take zero with God than more with the devil. You see what I mean? Because at the end of the day, all these things, the devil clearly told Jesus, God has given to me, I will give you however much you want, if only you worship me. So I think there are a lot more things that, especially because one thing that I think, you talk about my unique experience, me and other people that have been in similar situations. One thing that sometimes maybe we might forget when we are having these conversations are the change of feelings and the heightened emotions that are happening at the time. You see? And that's why sometimes people will end up in wars, in battles and things like that. And sometimes even maybe for just the ego sake or just because they've hurt you sake, it stops being about the things themselves. It's now just, all right, fine. You see what I mean?
It's just one overship.
There you go.
Just
you see? But then
to get my own back.
There you go. If we lean in and touch on that, like as if I'm talking about anime, but if we lean in and touch on that spiritual aspect of it, we will let go of that. You know, all these things. One of my favorite verses is becoming the conclusion of Songs of Solomon, when it says that Solomon experienced everything. I don't know if it's Songs of Solomon or Ecclesiastics. I think it's Ecclesiastics.
Ecclesiastes.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's going to be a depressing quote. So Ecclesiastes.
No, it's not depressing, but
all is vanity.
All vanity.
There's
Yeah.
nothing,
The man experienced everything and said that without God, all is vanity.
He was going through the most.
He went through some stuff. Yeah. So for me, that has been my experience. But it was interesting because up until we decided to have this conversation, I never thought about that. Because like I said, I feel like I breezed through a lot of things in life because of the prep that we've had. Because it was not a difficult thing for me. You see what I mean? Even with the feelings that were happening, it was not a tough thing for me. Granted, I can see all our comments saying that you had nothing. Yeah, granted I had nothing, but still, even that one thing, I could have gone for that one thing. You know, now every time I go to Malawi right now, as the green card, I'm just like, oh! You know, but yeah, so for me, I 100% agree with you. I 100% agree with you. But as always, I just wanted us to touch a little bit of reality of what a lot of people might be facing. Does that make sense?
No,
without the proper prep, if I can say that, which we don't owe to no man, but I owe to God.
Yeah. And I think that's the importance of discussing biblical things or issues from a biblical point of view in settings like this, where there are no emotions involved, where there are no stakes involved, where we can just discuss ideas, or you know, the Bible says this. Well, how do we understand it? How do we apply it? Blah blah blah. So that we have that understanding before we enter the time that we need it. Because trying to get that understanding during the time, it's near impossible.
It's like what you always do.
It's near impossible. With what?
You remember last time when I did something, I can't remember what it was. And then you're like, oh, why didn't you tell me? And I was like, yeah, so you can start asking me these questions. Why didn't you do this? And then you were like, why do you run away from important questions? I'm not running away from them. I just don't need them at that time. Now is the time we're having those conversations.
Yeah,
right.
no, honestly, no. It's because you know, at work, I'm known as the guy that you know, like nothing touches, like water off a duck's back, like everything is just. And I was thinking, like, it's not that I'm experiencing things differently to everybody else. I guess I am, but the issue is because I feel like you said, you have the toolkit already. You have the things that you need to manage these things. Like if someone if someone is acting what?
Like, do you think it's an issue because we were never loved growing up? So we have connection issues and commitment issues, and you don't attach yourself to certain things. So you think you're breathing full life, not caring. When
you're saying commitment issues. Connection issues. Well, no, because that's not our story. But no. Honestly, I think it is because when you spend enough time reading, studying, and discussing with like-minded people, and you understand that, okay, you know what, should for example, it's like, oh, should anyone ever wrong me? My onus as a Christian is to forgive.
Yes.
Like, it doesn't matter how bad the thing they've done to me is, I need to forgive. Like, now you understand that, you internalize it, you adopt it. 2 months later, someone does something wrong to you, you'll be thinking, but you know, okay, fine, I need to forgive.
You tell them you're never gonna have soup in my house ever again.
Yeah, you know, because you already have that in mind, it's gonna. Whereas in that moment when emotions are raging, someone tells you, but you know, you need to forgive. That's not gonna land. But well, forgive. You don't know how I'm feeling. You know,
even that you turn the anger. No, you don't turn the anger with them, but they join the people that have wronged you. By association.
But yes, yeah. I mean, with prenuptial agreements, I think another aspect of it is that obviously people are waiting a lot longer before they get married. And like you said, they accumulate
things like that,
worldly things, you know, things that in the grand scheme of things, let's be honest, don't really matter. But then obviously,
spoken like true poor people.
Well, I mean, I'm not poor. I'm broke. I don't think I'm poor.
Fair enough. Spoken like true broke people.
Yeah, you know, but then obviously now you're getting married, you have your 20k savings there, you're thinking, it's also a narrative, you know, this narrative online where she's gonna come, she's gonna take half, you know, she's gonna, and then obviously it gives people fears that they don't really need to be worrying about, and then they feed into their marriage, and now they have a little argument. Instead of just dealing with that argument, you're thinking, oh, what if she leaves me now? No, she's gonna take that 20k.
I don't think it plays out like that.
No, honestly,
I don't think
it's like that. Just deal with the issue at hand.
It sounds like you love the money more than the person at this rate.
Literally, that's what happens with some people. But but yeah. Anyway. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be releasing our weekly In the World episodes on Wednesdays, and those episodes will dive into things that have caught our eye, things that we find interesting during that week, and news articles that we think you'd find of interest. And of course, in the true Offbeat POV style, we'll be wading in our thoughts and what we think, or from a biblical point of view. That's Wednesday evenings. Saturday mornings will be time for our big question. Why not start off your weekend with not tantalizing,
provocative,
mind not numbing. What's the opposite of numbing? If I don't want to numb my mind, I want to
soften. Mind softening.
I don't think so. What's wrong with your eye?
I actually don't know what's happened with my eye now. But it started off like nice and slow, and now it's fully gone now. Like, I'm gonna have to finish the episode with one eye.
Okay. Yeah, let me just zoom in on me. Anyway, ladies and gents, we've kept you here long enough. In the World, Wednesday evenings. Big questions, Saturday mornings. My name is Chin. This is ProNick. We're Offbeat POV, and we are back.
Like we never left.
Until next time, confabulate.